My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 247 of Legally Clueless. Thank you for rocking with the podcast. Thank you for being an OG member, but if this is your first time, welcome to the family. Audio episodes like this, why am I saying episodes? Audio episodes like this go out every single Monday and you can stream them everywhere you get podcasts on. Make sure you sign up to join our family and receive our newsletter. Just go to our website and sign up. That's legallycluelessafrica.com. And while you're there, you can watch our video series, which has 4 seasons out, and our tour series as well. Oh, and I always forget, we have our warm fuzzy corner of the internet, which is Instagram at Legally Clueless Africa and TikTok Legally Clueless Africa as well. All of those links are in the show notes, and I have no idea why I'm swallowing my words. But I hope I don't do this the entire episode. Let's go. So I'm very excited about the story in this week's episode because it's very timely. We're seeing a lot of conversations where people are talking about moving from different African countries, going abroad, seeking greener pastures. And sometimes those conversations can really be one-sided. You don't really get a full view of what to expect if you go that route, which I'm not saying is a bad route to go, but I think you just need to have all of the facts or listen to a more balanced conversation when it comes to these things. Anyway, it's Angela's story. Listen to this.
My first year of school, not the greatest. I had to leave. I was bullied, unfortunately, by a Caribbean girl, which is weird to me because we were both black. She made me realize I'm African because I was like, we're both black. Why are you bullying me? She one day cornered me and was shouting at me. I like to call myself a porcupine. So I just put my spikes out, but I won't fight. I'm just not going to shout, argue with you. So I just let her do. And I think that the fact that I wasn't reacting or wanting to beat her or wanting to shout at her maybe made her more angry.
That's coming up a little later in this episode, but let's jump to the song of the week because I'm so excited. So there are very few artists who I listen to when I am writing poetry or just writing this prose collection I'm currently working on. Y'all know I love Erykah Badu, so she's always top of that list. But another artist who's on that list is Jamila Woods. I love her music. I love that she's also a poet, so there's so much intentionality behind the words in her songs. And she has this new album out that is just amazing. Like, it is just so amazing. The album is called Water Made Us. It's wonderful. One of the songs that I really love on there, I mean, I love all of them, but the one I want you to check out is called Send a Dove. Oh my goodness. It is so beautiful. And the lyrics are just so powerful. Have you ever been in a relationship where the person you're with seems to show love to others more than to you? And you know when they're showing this warmth to others, let me not call it love, that they're putting on a front. So it's like a catch-22 because when they're with you, they're not showing it to you, but they're being their real selves and you almost want them to fake it with you so you can get a bit of that warmth. Have you ever been in that situation before? I have. It's very uncomfortable. And I just felt like this song really touches on that. And there's a point where she says, we argue and it sounds like rain pouring, but what are we growing? Oh my goodness. Please listen to this song and like really read the lyrics. It's wonderful. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Okay, before we jump into 100 African stories, I just wanted to catch you up on things I'm working on and one thing that I think you need to clap for me for. But what am I working on? 2 things. Number 1, I heard all of you on Instagram saying that you would actually benefit from a Father Wounds episode. So I am working on it. I'm not sure you'll get it this year. It'll probably be out in January, but it is in the works, okay? Other thing I'm working on is the 2023 episode. If you're new to this podcast, every end of the year, we end with a 2023 episode or 2022 episode or 2021 episode or 2019. Yeah, you get it? So what happens in those episodes is I share some learnings that I gathered across the year. They're normally about 12 or sometimes 13 because we don't follow rules here. But this year has been so expansive. I have learned so much. You are going to enjoy that episode. It goes out on Christmas Day. Those are the two things I'm working on for you. Actually, it's three. The other thing we're working on that will be out pretty soon is our inaugural Legally Clueless Africa dope list. You know, I just got so tired of coming across Africans doing dope shit and not getting any recognition for it. You know what I mean? I feel like, and this is as somebody who's been on prestigious and sometimes dubious lists, right? And by dubious, I don't mean like I've done something wrong. It's those lists that are just popularity contests that is just so strange to me. But on those lists, sometimes you will have people who have created impact. But I find that so many times we overlook certain Africans who are really doing amazing work in their fields just because maybe they're not sexy enough, they don't have a certain number of followers. You know what I mean? And so we are starting our inaugural LCA dope list. That's going to have 20 dope Africans who are just like killing it in their field. We don't care if only 10 people know them or 10,000 people know them. What we care about is that they're dope, they're making impact, and we want to amplify and celebrate them. So the first list will be out pretty soon. It should be out within this week, which is super exciting. We're just reaching out to the prestigious people on this list. And it's going to be out on our website and we're going to make tons of noise about it. So be on the lookout for it, which is another reason why you need to sign up for a newsletter and also be part of our Insta family. Okay, I finished with what I'm working on for you. We did this all for you. Let's get to you clapping for me. This is the real essence of this episode, okay? So I finally stood up for myself. Let's talk about friendships. I had a friendship come to an end recently. Well, maybe not recently, almost 2 years ago. In the past, let me just catch you up as to how I was operating like a mad woman. I used to find it very hard to speak up for my needs in relationships and in friendships. I would belittle them. So if a friend or someone I'm in a relationship with does something that irks me, something I don't like, something that hurts me, I would find it very hard to speak up because I didn't want to risk losing them. I have, and I'm working through it, an immense fear of abandonment. And I've made so much progress in it. But before, I was so scared of being alone that I would settle for whatever friendships, whatever relationships, not speak up when I feel unsettled or hurt or disrespected, etc., because I didn't want to be alone. And I found that being alone is a wonderful thing. Oh my goodness. Your own company, it is expansive. Anyway, another thing I do is overperform, where I would go all out for people who weren't arriving in the relationship in the way that I like. So I'm not saying how they were arriving was wrong. It just wasn't what I wanted. And then I was now too scared to be alone, so I wouldn't voice that, hey, this space or this relationship is not serving me. I don't feel seen. You know what I mean? So the friendship ended because I felt that friend disrespected a boundary and wasn't there when I needed them. I felt unseen, abandoned, and then it dawned on me, this is how the friendship had been many times before. This was not the first time. And what I would do, because remember, fear of being alone, I would just sweep it under the rug. So they shared their perspective on, the ending of the friendship, etc. And one of the things that came out was that I was right. I wasn't seen. When somebody sometimes shares their views of things, it can be quite insightful, right? I wasn't seen. It wasn't about my feelings, but about what they'd gained from the friendship. I felt like there was more discomfort on their end as to things like, oh, she didn't even reach out during my birthday, etc. And less about, I wonder if she's okay. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm trying to respect the person, so not to like overshare, but old me would just ignore, all right? Because whatever. And also, I find confrontations to be inefficient. Before, I used to think that I was scared of confrontations, but then I realized no, in the right relationships, now I know when I speak up about my feelings being hurt, it almost never turns into a confrontation. So I find confrontations to be very inefficient. I just don't find them to be a comfortable communication space for me. Does that make sense? My goodness, I sound like a politician. But anyway, old me would have just ignored, right? But this is new and improved and healing and showing up for myself. I'm not abandoning my feelings anymore. I'm speaking out for myself, right? So I actually stood up for myself and explained very clearly why I ended the friendship and highlighted many moments where I felt abandoned in that friendship, where I felt like a boundary had been crossed and I felt a bit disrespected, you know? And I also think that, which I shared, that friendship was meant to bring me to who I am today. So there's nothing wrong with a friendship ending. I think some friendships are for a season. Sometimes you expand through life and you then can't fit into certain friendships anymore. And that's not terrible, you know, it's just life. And yeah, so I thought part of the function of that friendship was to bring me to who I am today. This lady who can articulate her needs, stand up for herself, not abandon herself, get a round of applause from you. And so I'm very thankful because since that lesson is learned, this lady, this new me, can't fit into that friendship anymore, and that's okay. That's one of the lessons. I'm going to go deeper into it on the 2023 episode. Anyway, let's jump into 100 African stories as I listen out to your applause. I'm really forcing that you should be clapping for me. I'm super excited to share part 1 of Angela's story, which is truly about silence and why you should never be afraid of new beginnings. You can have numerous new beginnings across your life and it will still be beautiful. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
My name is Angela Owero, but everyone calls me Lush, so in this episode we'll just go with the name Lush. I am born in Kenya. I've lived in UK, but right now I'm from Kenya and I live in Kenya. So I was born in Kenya, and then I think after around age 11, my dad had moved to Germany. It didn't work for him in Germany, so he relocated to UK. So we moved to join him. So I would say, I moved at around age 11 because my first birthday, I was 12 in UK. I was really excited about moving because in my mind, I was like, oh my God, this is the closest I'll get to meet Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I'm 11. I'm going to live in a different place. No one knew that we were moving. No one knew. No one knew. Only, I think, my grandma and an auntie and an uncle and my mom, my dad's sister, but no, not many people knew. My friends didn't know I was leaving. I just never came back to school, really. As I continue to tell my story, silence has been something that I live by, like operate in silence. That's when you're most successful. So when I knew that we were going, I was like, man, I used to love Princess Diana. I loved Spice Girls. I was like, this is so cool. And then, the soldier at Buckingham Palace. I was like, I'm going to meet the live one. So I was young, it's an exciting time. There's no thought about like nervousness. And so it was just going to be a new experience. And I wasn't thinking beyond like, I guess, the superficial things. So yeah, we traveled with my mum and my sister. I have one sister. She's younger than me. She was 1.5 at the time. Yeah, so she, of course, she only knows England. Yeah, so we were traveling with mum. And remember that when we landed, we stayed at a hotel so that my dad can meet us. And he came with like I think that's when I fell in love with teddy bears. He bought me and my sister a big white teddy bear. And I was like, oh my God, we're really here. I remember a bit about like the airport, but I really remember the first day with the teddy bear. And there our journey began, because I want to say that we moved like September. So the weather was not like too cold or anything like that. I remember now leaving the hotel and walking. We've always lived in a place called Slough, which is in, I guess, southwest England. So if anyone's not familiar, it's like 15 minutes away from Heathrow Airport. So it's just a suburban town. There's nothing special about it. The castle, don't live far from Windsor Castle. So those experiences. That first year, we went to Scotland for Christmas. In Slough, in like southern part of England, it doesn't always snow. So I experienced snow for the first time in Scotland. It was freezing. But like my first year of school, not the greatest. I had to leave. I was bullied, unfortunately, by a Caribbean girl, which is weird to me because we were both black. I didn't like that experience at all. So I told my parents, like, you have to move me. She made me realize I'm African. I think that's what I would say. Because I was like, we're both black. Why are you bullying me? Up to this day, I don't know why she's bullying me. I never understood. And that really bugged me because I was like, we're both black. Why are you being mean for? In the school, the first school that I was in, there was a lot more Asians than there was any other race, to be honest. I mean, it's just that area. There's an area in Slough called Chalvi. It's very Indian, Pakistani, like there are strong dynamics in that area. And then the whites are fewer and then other race. So I think I realized that was the moment I realized that Caribbeans and Africans, especially at that time, they just, I don't know, we just never really got on. And she one day cornered me and was shouting at me. And I like to call myself a porcupine, so I just put my spikes out, but I won't fight. I'm just not going to shout, argue with you. So I just let her do. And I think that the fact that I wasn't reacting or wanting to beat her or wanting to shout at her maybe made her more angry. But I knew that my power was, I guess, maybe my story is about silence, but I just didn't want to involve. So I just went home and I just said, I have to leave this school. So my parents were trying to get me into a Catholic school because I'm Catholic. So I moved to a school called St. Joseph's. And that was a better experience. It was a very much those Catholic schools you see in the movies. Roll up your skirt. Like we used to, our school at the time, we wore kilts. For those who don't know what a kilt is, it's a Scottish skirt and it's made of woolen and it's heavy and it's long. It's like way below the knee, right? So we would roll it up. So everyone looked fat because on the waist you like rolled up your skirt. And my mom would be like, no, if I don't, I'm gonna get bullied. I'm not experiencing bullying again. And so in that school, the dynamics changed because my closest friends were black, but it was like Jamaican, Caribbean, these two girls from Ghana. So like it didn't feel, we were just black. We weren't defining ourselves by where we're from in terms of where our blackness is. And so we were just like the cool black kids. We weren't like the white kids, and not in a bad way, but like most of like the English girls ended up having kids young. We didn't really follow that. I don't know, we just were in our own like little cocoon and were the cool ones. We weren't trying to get into any like behavior with boys or anything. That wasn't our style. That wasn't it. We were just like living life and living school. And so that's where my story of Lush began, because I want to say in school, we were 6 of us. Yeah, 6 of us or 5 of us. And then outside of school, there was like 2-3 other girls who weren't in the same school as, were part of our squad. But in the squad, you couldn't be called Angela. You had to have a cool name. So I grew up in the era of Miss Dynamite. If you're into UK garage music, there was like Blaze Squad. There was So Solid Crew. For those who are listening, they'll know. You just go Google it, you'll know. So in these crews, you couldn't be your name. It's not cool. You had to have a cool name. So I remember this girl called Lucy, and I was like, why are you called Miss Angel? Like, your name is Lucy. And there's a girl called Kirsty McCabe. She's like, we need to find your name, Angela. I'm like, yeah, but like these guys have taken the names I thought I could take. So she literally got the dictionary and like flipped through and then found the name Lush. She's like, what do you think of that? I was like, yeah, I can be Lady Lush. So I used to be called Lady Lush. And over time, I dropped the lady. I'm still a lady. To be honest, I think I'm very good at living where I am. Don't really think outside of Kenya or Africa. And I think I need to stress this. Being African wasn't cool, right? You used to be called Af, which wasn't a cool name. You know, if you had an accent that's African, like people would laugh at. Being African is cool now, but it wasn't cool then. So you just don't think about like being Kenyan or anything like that. I mean, you'll say it, but like you're a black girl living in England, period. So if I'm being honest, actually what I wanted to experience, and people think I'm weird, I shared this with someone, they said, you're so strange for that. So I'd grown up, like I said, with being around black people. But I'm like, I live in England. Maybe I need to expose myself to the white community a lot more. If there was anything I was trying to do, is trying to make sure that I don't get caught up in the stereotype of a black person where I won't succeed, I'll end up getting pregnant, or I will get a low income job. So I was like, maybe if I immerse myself in a different community. So I actually went the opposite. Like my friends wanted to go to black colleges. I didn't want that. So I went to a college that we were only like 4 black people and like 1 black teacher. I was in those schools where there were goths, it was just very out there. And then I was in an area, it's a place called Staines, very posh, I don't know how to explain, like it's Staines ain't that posh, but like the people that live there, or the people that are around the area that I went to college, which is a place called Egham. It's near like Old Windsor. So you've got the top end type of white people, people of that white community or English community. So I wanted to experience what it's like to be in their world. Safe to say, after those 2 years, I was like, yeah, I went to the blackest uni after that. I was like, yeah, let me just stick to what's comfortable for me. I went to East London, the heart of the black community. I went the complete opposite. It was interesting, though. I must say I didn't experience racism. I think when people say they've lived in the West and they've experienced, I think my racism is maybe very subtle. I think I've seen it more like my mum has experienced in one way. I've seen it other people, but like I don't think I've experienced. Or maybe I'm so oblivious that I don't care, because I'm like, I'm not going to define myself or limit myself because someone is seeing me as black and I can't get to where I need to get to. So yeah, I went to a really white college. So at that time I was like, I want to experience something completely different, so I don't find myself not aspiring for greater, right? I went to a really good college. There is where, so one of my mom's cousin was trying to help me identify what to focus on for sixth form. So if there was anything that I was thinking about, is more work rather than identity of who Angela is. That wasn't something I was thinking about. It was more like, do I pursue like media? I've always like loved media. I was obsessed with television. So the college that I went to, also the reason why I chose it is they had a diploma for TV and video production. So you learn what it's like to be in the gallery. Like you got to experience, it was a really good college. Like, I mean, we'll get to it, but fast forward, I ended up teaching in that college. When I did the TV and video diploma, I knew that I wanted to do media. I knew that I wanted to do something to do with TV. Back in the day, there used to be like in Channel 4, there used to be like these shows. I can't remember now, for the love of God, but there would be like these cool presenters. It was pop culture, right? So it was about interviewing all these like presenters and musicians and stuff. And sometimes I thought, yeah, I'd love to be the presenter, but I also really, that course let me know what it's like to be behind the scenes, be a camera person, be the director of a program or producer. So it really helped me like see the different sides. So I knew for sure my uncle helped me to be certain, and my parents were right. Like I should have just listened to them. I did in the end anyway. But so I knew I wanted to go into media. Like I said, I knew I just wanted to immerse myself in a more mixed culture. I think a dynamic of being the only black in a lot of different races can be a little bit overwhelming, and you feel like you have to lower your culture a little bit so that you can fit in. And I just didn't want that. I just wanted to be where. So my friend at the time used to go with me to go visit all these universities. One thing I knew is I'm not sharing no bathroom with anybody. So I'm not going to lie. I based my decision on the college, the way I had my own bathroom and it was affordable, right? But I really liked it. So I went to University of East London, which the campus is in an area called Beckton. Yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do media. And when I went to that college, at that university, I was like, yeah, this will be my home for the next 3 years. So earlier there was the conversation about, did I think about being Kenyan or, So I knew I'm done with school. I had done my GCSEs, I'd done my A-levels, and I'd done my degree. But I knew I just needed to get out. I need a break. I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for backpacking. That ain't me. So I was like, I can. So I had an aunt who lived in Canada. I think that summer before I finished, me and my mum went to Sweden, and I really loved it. I don't know why. I really liked their language. I was like, I could live here for 6 months. It's such a clean environment. There are different type of white people from what I was experiencing. Especially for non-English speaking, I found them to be really nice. So I was like, okay, I can live in Sweden because now we had like a friend that I could go and stay until I figure myself out. And then my aunt was like, I can try and get you something to do for like 6 months. I was like, cool, see what you can do. But my uncle in Kenya at the time was a senior person for the Nation newspaper. He was the main editor. So I told my dad, why don't you, because it's my dad's cousin, let's see if Uncle Bernard can help. So he got the emails, like email him, tell him what you're interested in, tell him what you've studied, tell him what you're looking for. At the time, it's really interesting. At the time, I no thoughts about writing. We'll get into that, but like no thought. I just knew TV, that's all, right? Like I said, I'm obsessed. So yeah, I emailed him. He was the successful one out of all the other options. And so he got me an intern with the TV. I was connected to a lady at the time who worked there called Charlene Samat. We had interactions. I was graduating 2007 in December. So I was allowed to start, like, once I'm done, I just move, and then 5 months. Yeah, so then we had a big graduation party. Yeah, I had enjoyed my graduation. I hadn't been drinking. I decided that's the day I'm going to drink. Didn't come home for 3 days. Came the day before I'm flying to Kenya for 6 months. Anyway, yeah, so then now I was very fortunate when I came. Like I said, the TV and video production allowed me to experience what it's like to be in the gallery. For those who don't know anything about TV, there's a studio and there's the gallery. The gallery is where the directors and the sound people are. So I knew what it's like to be in that environment. So when I got here to Kenya and I reported, they're like, oh yeah, we're putting in news. I'm like, news? I don't even watch news in England. I don't even know I barely know who the Prime Minister is. Beyond that, I don't even know the Foreign Minister. I don't mean news in Kenya. But the great experiences, it was exactly what I learned. It was like, I don't know what you call it when pilots, before they fly, they have the simulator. So I guess my diploma was like a simulator, right? So it was very easy. I felt very at home. It's just the news part that got me. And they used to laugh at me because of how I say their surnames. Now I think I'm better, but how I say the surnames of the politicians at the time. So before the anchor's gone, they're like, say that again, and they're creasing, and then they have to, of course, have like a serious face. It was a great experience doing the news directing, but after a while, I was like, can you move me to TV, because this ain't it. I really loved my experience at NTV. It was supposed to be 5 months. I remember calling my mum, like, well, so basically, I'm extending my stay. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I've been able to, I want to say I did news for like 6 months. So they extended, and then I was like, yeah, I need to do TV production. Once there's something coming through, please. Because news, maybe I even did it for 8 months actually. Because news is intense. And if you recall, 2007, was the post-election violence on my birthday, which is 27th of December. So it was it was a good experience because it was very intense. That was also the year that 2008 was the year that Nakumat burned down. So there was a lot. So it was intense. But that experience for post-election violence, there's a lot of things that we don't see behind the scenes with media. It was a lot. It was really bad. I don't want to go into it in case I'm like misquoted, but it was bad. It was a bad time for Kenyans, to be honest. It's probably the worst time in my living. It's just seeing the hatred, because you also, media had to be quite responsible in what they're packaging, because you also, if you share too much of the hatred, we put more fuel to that. But yeah, but it's really interesting because I actually see myself as Kenyan. I don't see myself as my tribe, because at the time I was dating someone of the opposite tribe to me. And I remember a family member asking me, I'm like, are you sure? I was like, oh yeah. Oh, there's that. I know. Love conquers all. When I finally got the yes to move from news to TV, I was so excited. So at the time, Eric Wainaina's wife had a TV show at an opposing TV station. And so there was this like buzz to create like women TV shows. And so Olivia Otieno, I think she likes to be called, I think they had been trying to find something for her. And so we came up with a show. I wish I could remember. The problem with that show, there was a lot of like green, it was very in studio, green screen. I don't know, it just didn't work. And then Carol Mandy, I'm showing my age, Sebuleni. Yeah, so we started Sebuleni with her. I did that for 6 months, and then the show continued, but I left because now I was like, pay my dues, okay? I was like, just to go back a few steps back, news was very intense, so I never get sick. I barely get sick, but I used to get sick a lot. Even it's like I had diseases, like I had gout, and I had to go for a chiropractor to like release the water on my legs because I couldn't. So TV, I wanted something that allowed me to kind of have a work-life balance because I was lacking that. But I was working really hard, and I was like, I'm 23 at the time. I know my stuff. So pay me my money. And in my head, I'm like, well, if you ain't paying me, I got England at the back of my, it's my other card. So we kept going back and forth, and I was just like, these guys are playing games. So I remember one time I went back to UK for a holiday in September for 2 weeks. And then I think that's when now like I started Sebuleni. It was great. I really enjoyed it. We used to record it at Grand Regency. I don't know what it's called now. Yeah, it was a really nice, because it was live. It was a live show. A lot of dynamics when it comes to live shows. I have all my hats to people who do like live recordings, especially, on TV is different. Like if you're packaging it for channels like YouTube or anything, or like your website, it's different because you've had time. But like with TV, it's has a lot more weight. I don't know what it is. So much pressure with that. So yeah, we enjoyed it. It was nice. And then, so we're going back and forth trying to negotiate. There, I'm like, okay. So I started to see if I can get other opportunities, other TV stations. But your girl wasn't patient enough. So I was like, I think, let me just go back to UK. I think I've done my time. It's been good. Let's go back. But in my back of my head, I remember getting the flight. I'm like, man, I think I made the wrong chess move. But here we are. I was like, man, I think I should have hanged in there, try and get another job. But then everyone will understand when I say once you have been able to like get to a certain age, you're getting your money. I was now getting to a point where I think I need to move out of my living with my uncle and my aunt. So I need to be my own person. I'm growing up. So sometimes there would be a little bit of friction. So I was like, yeah, I think if I can't get an income that can allow me to move, then let me just go back home, figure myself out, and then I'll move out, right? Yeah, so that's how I ended up back in UK. I just knew that if you guys are not going to pay me, I'm going to go back home. I'd spoken to my parents. I'm like, and remember, I was only coming here for 5 months. You know, I ended up staying longer, falling in love, falling out of love, falling in love again. So a lot had happened that wasn't in my plan. My plan was to just get away from England for a bit. I'd never had any intention of staying longer than the 5 months. That wasn't in my plan. It was just a break. So I had no idea what I was going to do. Like, I had no plan other than get on the flight. So when I get there, I'm like, yeah, they're going to recognize my African experience. Yo. It's like, oh, you work in Kenya? That doesn't count. And so I started to realize, I think my TV dream is dying. Like, my hopes and dreams of working in media, I think they're closing. And I would apply. And then the problem is, when you have gotten so much experience, you don't want to start lower, right? So at the time, I didn't want to start lower. I was like, I've got all these experience, like, so I kept applying. Nothing. No, like, I'm not even getting an email to say we are considered. Nothing. Not even rejection email. Nothing. So for 9 months, I had nothing. It was a really low time. So my mum's friend had a charity. And so I was like, oh, you looking for volunteers? Because I need something to do. Now I think I'm starting to lose. Because I was still caught up, like, I have to do media. I have to. But mum's like, it's not working. Try and look for something else and then find your way back. But I was so, like, set. Like, my whole life has been about, like, living and working for TV. And now I can't do that. So then now it started to dawn on me, crap, maybe I should have just stayed in Kenya, right? Like, maybe I could have been a different person. And then I'm still in touch with people that I was working with and how they're progressing. I'm like, maybe I made the mistake. Then I'm like, no, you know what? Can't live with shoulda, coulda, woulda. Let's just be where we are. And so I think my next chapter now became about doing community work. So the charity was about the immigrant community and also working with the community to establish different projects to stop trouble in the streets. So I came in to do a project for the youth. So when they're off, they have something to do. So Slough Borough Council was looking to start something for the youth, but a program that they can, because they were trying to build the youth and create programs so that there's less, like, crime, you know, less drugs and all that. So I started a program. I curated it with the help of my mum's friend Sue. It was a really good experience. I did that actually for 9 months. But I was like, I need money. So, like, a family friend had an agency, for a healthcare agency, and they had opened in a place called South End. South End is by the sea. South End by the sea, actually, is what it's called. And it's at the south of England, and it's by the coastline. So they needed someone to help run it. They were like, do you want to do it? Because you need a job. I was like, okay. I mean, I need something to do. Completely, it was recruitment, nothing to do with anything I'm interested in. So anyway, so I moved to Southend. I want to say Southend is in a county called Essex. I'm from a county called Berkshire. We are two different people, is what I realized. If you want to understand, go watch a show called The Only Way. The Only Way is Essex, Towie. You'll understand. They're very different breed. People are probably gonna get hate for this, but it's true. So that environment wasn't conducive for me. I stuck it out though. I did that recruitment job for a bit, for I think like a year. I was like, this ain't for me. So I started to look for something else. Then I got like a marketing thing in a neighboring town. It was like 40 minutes, a place called Colchester. Yeah. So I did that for a bit, but it wasn't what, you know, when people, what is it when someone says to you, I want you to join this thing, and it's a pyramid scheme. Yeah. But the way they package their jobs, right? So I was like, oh, this sounds like a great opportunity. Girl, let me tell you. Hey, I quit my job for this. Still can't believe I quit my job for this. I was doing door-to-door sales, Like, I know what rejection feels like. Oh my God, getting your slum. You know, now I think about it, I was like, what were we doing? We would enter strangers' houses and have a cup of tea. What if it was like Dharma? You know, now that I think about it, now that the world has gone mad, and I think, why? Yeah, we used to enter people's houses, have cup of tea. You think you've got the sale, then they're like, oh, we'll think about it. And I will never forget one about training, but it's really helpful. They'd be like, okay, so guys, I want you to wear gratitude. And like, what do you mean wear gratitude? The hell? So he'd be like, just pretend you're wearing an imaginary suit, right? So today you're going to wear gratitude or wear joy, right? So when you get out there, when the doors are slamming in your face, yeah, just remember, you got gratitude. Got the right attitude on. You got joy on. And it's winter. I joined this job at winter. You know, you go in. Remember, I'm saying it's 40 minutes away. So it's a 40-minute drive. And then we go for training in the morning. They try to build up courage, right? Wear your suit, your imaginary suit. And so you go for walks, and then, of course, you go this street, and then the other person goes this street. And you keep knocking. And sometimes you're lucky. But my God, I did that for 6 months. It paid my bills, though. You know, I was able to pay rent. But I just remember, I guess I'm quite dramatic, innit? Because now that I think about it, I remember getting home. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. The next day, actually, no, I got home and I just drove. So my parents lived about 2.5 hours away. And I was like, okay, I think I'm tired. So I called my friend. I was like, oh, are you guys home? They lived in London. I was like, I'll just come. They're like, are you all right? Why are you like, this is around 11. I was like, yeah, I was just driving home. Then I was like, actually, I can come and see you guys, because I didn't want to talk about what is going on. I just felt like depressed. I wasn't happy. I just felt like I was losing myself. And like I said, I did not like Essex. I just didn't like that environment. I felt like, even though my parents are 2.5 hours away and I can call them and like I could see them in the weekends and what have you, I was like, yeah, this is not it for me. And so when I got home now the next day in the morning, my parents are like, what are you doing? I was like, so Dad, we're going to rent a van and we're going to move. They're like, you want to start afresh again? So when I moved from Kenya, it was 2009. When I finally moved to Southend, it was 2010. So I was moving back to Slough, like I'd say like towards the end of 2011, like September-ish. They're like, you want to start again? Like, you want to go back to not having a job? I said, yeah, because I'd rather have my sanity, because I'm losing my mind. They're like, okay, no worries. So my poor housemates thought I lived with 2 guys. They like thought they had done something. I said, no, it's got nothing to do with you. I just can't live here anymore. But Southend was brilliant because I learned, there's a period in my life where during Lent, I gave up TV. And so that time I learned to make jewelry. I learned my love for writing. I started a blog called crazycoollush.blogspot.com. It's still there. I don't write in it anymore. But so I discovered things about myself. I discovered that I'm quite creative, artistic, and I loved my own company. So it was a good period of my life where I really learned about my artistic side of things. So I don't regret it at all. But I do remember that moment that I chose my sanity. Yeah, so I moved back to Slough to restart again.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. I absolutely loved this story, and that's part 1. Part 2 is going to be out next week in episode 248, so make sure you are here next Monday to listen to that. But in this part 1, first and foremost, can we just also clap for Uncle Bernard? Oh my goodness, because we're always laughing, especially as Africans. We have an uncle who, when you finish campus, you send your CV, and even they're the ones initiating. Yeah, send me your CV, I'll hook you up with a job. And then they just go silent, like they never deliver. But who is Uncle Bernard? Who is he? Because he came through. saving face for all African uncles across the continent. Oh my goodness. I also was so, I don't know, I felt really sad actually about the bit when Angela talks about working so hard in Kenya, getting all of this experience, and then going back to the UK and looking for jobs there, and they don't recognize African work experience. I had a very close friend who also experienced this. She had tons of experience working here, and when she traveled to another country abroad, it was so difficult for her to get a job because they were just not recognizing it, which is pretty, I don't know, I've taken offense. I've taken offense. I haven't read much on this, so perhaps I'm missing something, but it feels pretty oppressive. Because why? I'm really trying to think about the reason why work experience in Africa across different industries, because like I was saying, that friend of mine was not in the media industry, right? And she was working while in Kenya, working with multinational companies like that are recognized globally. And still they were like, nope, it was experience in Kenya. Can you imagine it? I've heard of stories where Africans go to these countries and you kind of have to, let's say perhaps you've married someone from those countries, you use their surname when you're sending out your job applications because there's actually not oppression, there's discrimination. That's the word I was looking for. There's discrimination once they get an inkling that this is an African. Obviously, this is not a blanket statement. I'm just saying these are stories that I've heard. I have a friend who I know went through this and, you know, it's come up in this story and it's just like, what in the world? I would love to hear from you who's listening, maybe in the US or in the UK, and you're an African. How was your job hunting experience in those countries? Were you also told your work experience, because it was in an African country, was null and void? And what was the reason? Because I'm just like, this doesn't feel good in my soul. Another thing I wanted to also share that I was reminded of when I was, you know, reviewing this part one of Angela's story, there is this wonderful young Kenyan guy. He's an actor and he's just got good energy. His name is Charlie Karumi. And I met him when I was in radio. He was in a film that, if I'm not wrong, was nominated for an Oscar. It's like a Kenyan film. I can't remember the name right now. And so we ended up interviewing him, and that's how I met him. And I've just always loved his energy. He migrated to Canada, is really chasing his dream in the film industry. And he did recently, I was watching his YouTube channel, he did a series of videos talking about the reality when he went into that country and the jobs he had to settle for in the journey to his dreams, and just understanding that it wasn't as clear cut, the path wasn't as clear cut as he thought it was going to be, and how to harmonize that emotionally, you know? So you have these expectations of your life when you travel out or you migrate to another country, and when you reach there, it's different. I think at a point he talked about community, which is a big thing, you know. We really take it for granted that where we live, we can just like drive a few minutes and we are at an auntie's place, or if your parents are still alive, at your parents' place, or your best friend, etc. You can call them anytime because they're in the same time zone. We also underestimate how isolating it can feel, maybe if you don't speak the language in the country you've gone through. So there are many factors to consider. I'm not saying don't migrate. I really think you just need to make a truly informed decision, you know? Anyway, so I'm going to put in the show notes a link to Charlie's YouTube channel so you can check it out. I really enjoyed his honesty when he was just talking candidly about his experience. So part 2 is going to be out in next week's episode. Make sure you are here for it. Again, if you want to share your story on this podcast, you're African, your story is valid, and we want to hear it. That's what we're all about. We have correspondence now, so we're recording stories all year round. All you have to do is, in the show notes, click the link to our storyteller form, fill it out, and We will get back to you. I am so happy that we're finally doing this. And very soon, we will be looking for correspondents in different African countries. So I feel like we're going to be sniffing around South Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria first. So if you are listening from those countries, stay listening. We're going to be looking for you really, really soon. Back to Kenya. If you are here, you can actually in East Africa, you can catch us on Trace Radio every Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. and 11 p.m. Fridays at 1 p.m. Just go to traceradio.co.ke to stream. Sign up to join our family officially on our website. A link to that is in the show notes. And next week, we will listen to part 2 of Angela's story that is super inspiring. Listen to this.
And one day I didn't go to church. And my mum comes and she's like, hey, I want to talk to you. I was like, oh, what's up? So there's a lady called Alexandria. And she's like, oh, she came up to me and told me to give you this message. She said the Holy Spirit told her to tell you need to pursue teaching. So stop worrying. Just go for it. I was in the kitchen. I remember that moment like it was yesterday. It makes me emotional. I said, okay. So I applied to do that, the degree, a postgrad degree, and then I worked out how much it would cost. So I didn't want to get a student loan, so I can fund it myself. And I followed what the Holy Spirit told me.
That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.